Do you like candy corn? Well, how about a candy corn quilt? Let's do it. Hey everyone, my name is Kristen Somm and I have a group on Facebook called Kristen Creates. There is a link in the video description, and make sure to subscribe to the Kristen Creates YouTube channel so that you get notifications whenever we have the next challenge ready for you to participate in. We are going to do the Candy Corn Quilt Shop together. I'm looking forward to all of us having more fun together. Hey Kimberbell friends, it's time to start on Candy Corn Quilt Shop. I know we've waited for this one and we're very excited to get started. This project is sponsored by Oma Darlings, and if you look in the description of this video, which is at the bottom of this video, there are links to Oma Darlings and information on the coupon code. Since they are sponsoring this project for us, they have offered a 10% discount on all of your Candy Corn Quilt Shop supplies. So make sure to support them in sponsoring our project. So a quick reminder of the things that we need for this project. So you need the Candy Corn Quilt Shop booklet. It has the CD inside of the booklet with all of the embroidery designs. And then we also need the embellishment kit. I have mine in a Ziploc bag because I've already gotten into it. So the Candy Corn Quilt Shop Embellishment Kit. And again, all of these items are available on Oma Darlings on their website, and there's a link in this video description. Another thing that you need is the fabric kit. You can get the boxed kit. Some shops aren't selling the boxes because it's harder to ship. So either way, you can get like a half-yard bundle or just the regular fabric kit, and all the supplies are in there, but the backing is not in the fabric kit, so make sure to get a backing. I don't have mine yet to show you, but you'll need backing for the quilt. And then an optional item that you can get, I don't have mine yet, but just an example, is a thread kit. So the thread kit will have all the colors that you need specifically for this quilt. And then you don't have to worry about trying to match up the colors and does this color go well with this quilt, and you don't have to deal with any of that. So again, I don't have mine yet, but Oma Darlings is selling them, so check out their website for that. And it's a kit. I think that there's 10 thread colors in it. And until I get mine, I've picked out some backup threads. There's a few conversion charts, and you can just try it. That's why I was saying it. The thread kit's easier. So if you hold up your fabrics that you're going to use against your thread supplies that you already have, like your thread stash, then you can try and match them up and get something close. But it's easier to get the kit. So I would go for that if you can. All right, so those are the supplies that you need to be able to get started with this quilt, the Candy Corn Quilt Shop quilt, and it's sponsored by Oma Darling. So make sure to check them out. All right, so for today, so a couple things. We have several newbies that are doing their first quilt, very exciting. We will go over the whole process. So how to do the quilting in the hoop, and what size of fabrics and battings and everything that you're going to need. So don't worry, we're going to have everything taken care of for you. It'll be easy. I promise you're going to really enjoy this one. I've been looking through the guide and it looks really fun. So on that, there are 29 blocks that are to be quilted, regular blocks, the first 29, and there are no chenille ones. So I wanted to point that out because for those of you that are using the fabric, like you're putting your fabrics into these packets, they're called dry erase packets, I think. And if you're pre-cutting, totally optional, up to you, but if you're pre-cutting, you don't have to worry about chenille on this one. So on the chenille blocks, like for Boardwalk we just finished, and you don't want to back those fabrics with fusible stabilizers. So that's why I'm pointing out that those of you that are pre-cutting, don't worry about chenille. And we'll talk about each block as we work on it, but if you're pre-cutting, that's fine. So I'll also add a link to these packets. These are optional. It's just to be able to organize your fabrics. And some people are doing them by section. I'm not sure the other options, but I'm doing them by day. So you can see I've got number 4 and 5 and 6 and so on. I'm doing them by day, and I'm just putting all of the fabrics that are pre-cut, and I also have fusible stabilizer on the back, and I'm including the batting and any embellishments that are not for later, because most of the embellishments we'll do after the quilt is done. But like some of them have applique, glitter, and mylar and whatever. So whatever I need for that block, I'm adding into that day's packet. So, all right, let's see what else we need to talk about. Oh, there's also 20 border blocks, by the way, and I'm going to quilt those too, and I'll show you how. If you're pre-cutting, you could make those a little bit larger. I think I'll probably do mine about a 1/2 inch larger than what is in the directions. For those, when I'm pre-cutting, I only have about 13 days pre-cut so far, but I'm hoping to make time to pre-cut all of my fabrics, including the border blocks. So that's optional. And if you've already pre-cut, don't worry. Think about like when we do the inner borders and outer borders, if you've done any of these tutorials with me before as a group project, those you cut to the size that you need, and it always works out just fine. So the reason for cutting them a little bit larger, if you choose, is so that if the quilting design, the embroidery pulls at the fabric, then you won't have trouble piecing it all together. So on Boardwalk that we just finished, I pre-cut mine a little bit larger, and by the end I was just doing them the regular size, and I did totally fine. Mine came together perfectly, so I didn't have any issues. And I think the reason is because on the quilting, or on the embroidery blocks, embroidery and applique, those have so much higher stitch count that you can see that it's going to pull at the stitches, will pull at the fabric. And the quilting is very minor, you know, it's just a little bit of background quilting, and I didn't find that those pulled at all. So it's up to you. If you want to do your border blocks a little, if you want to cut them a little bit larger, go for it. If you don't want to, that's fine. Or if you've already pre-cut and you don't have any extra size in there, that's fine. You'll be fine, I promise. Okay, so embellishments, thread, fabrics, everything that you're going to need. We will go through the whole process. So a lot of people like to ask, well, how are we going to put the backing on? We're not there yet. But here's the process. We will go through all of the blocks, do the border blocks, put all the sections together, and then we will, after that, we will do the inner borders and the outer borders. And once we've got the whole quilt top done, then we're going to stitch in the ditch. And the stitch in the ditch is adding the back fabric. And I'll go over the whole process. Don't worry. Stitch in the ditch, and then the binding, and then we'll do the embellishments, and then it's done. My goal is to get this done before Halloween, but we're starting late. So we'll see. You know, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, we're not going to kill ourselves making it happen. So, all right. And if you're using a 5x7 hoop, I'm going to have a separate tutorial on that, and I'll try to give information on each block too as far as quilting. So just a quick heads up, you can do this whole quilt using a 5x7 hoop, but imagine like, so here's your first, or one of the first blocks. So instead of having the quilting be just in this little bit that we're going to embroider, you want it on the whole block. So the way that I'll go over all of this on each block, but so for instance, say that we have, I don't remember what this is, 6.5 by 8.5 or something like that. We're going to use our cut size to determine the quilting designs. And of that, that's the size that we want our quilting to be. So we don't want the overall, like the original, this is the first step of this is our whole background fabric. We don't want that because we're going to cut part of it away anyway. But we do want it as our final cut size. So if our final cut size is like 4.5 by 6.5, then you want a quilting design that is 4 by 6. And so if you have say that the quilt design, the final cut size is 6 by 8 or 6.5 by 8.5. If you have a 5 by 7 hoop, then you can't do a 6 by 8 quilting design. but that's okay. So what you would do, and I'll show you in a whole separate video that's just for the 5x7 people, you would easily double hoop. And the Kimberbell quilting designs are set up in a way that everything just works together perfectly. So you won't have any trouble. You would do, so say you wanted a 6x8 quilt block, you would do your quilting designs in what? So it'll work, and we'll go over on that on each one. Don't worry. All right, so for today's block, let's talk about today's block specifically. We are going to do the first 3 blocks. Normally we would only do 1 in a day, but this one they're grouped together. If you see empty bobbins, almost scraps, and rest in pieces, they're all together. So we're going to go ahead and just do that as our first challenge. So all 3 of these blocks, and don't worry, you can take your time on it. We'll try and book like every other day as a working day, and the other day will give me time to do the video editing. So it won't be too stressful, don't worry. And all I ask you to do is do your challenge, and then make sure to add a photo in the comments. That way I know when people are ready to move on, and it's fun. That's what makes it a group project, is I'm seeing your work, you're seeing my work, and we're all seeing how the whole group project is coming together, and it just makes it really fun, more fun together, right? All right, so for today, we are going to want these 3 main fabrics. So the purple one and the green one and the black with spider webs on it. And all of these, I always back them on my main fabric. I back them with fusible stabilizer. I'm currently using SF101 by Pellon. I've also used World Weiner fusible stabilizer. Kimberbell has new stabilizers out. I haven't tried them yet, but I'm sure they're fantastic. So use what works for you, but either way, just back it with fusible stabilizer, each of these main fabrics. So on these, the main fabrics, we're going to cut them to 6.5 by 8.5, each of these, purple, green, and black spider webs, and 6.5 by 8.5. All right, 6.5 by 8.5, and again, backed with fusible stabilizer. And then for the headstone, I think it's called, we're going to use, it's a plain gray fabric. And all of these are in your booklet and in your fabric kit. So one thing I'm noticing, so these are applique pieces, and as always, I back these with fusible stabilizer. Some don't, and that's totally up to you, but I almost never get puckering. I never have problems, and it makes them really crisp. You can see my blocks are very crisp when they've got the fusible stabilizer on it, and it makes it easier for cutting those applique pieces. And if it didn't have that fusible stabilizer on it, when you're cutting, all of your fabric starts fraying, and it's not going to do that as much with the fusible stabilizer on the back. So one thing I noticed as I'm looking at the back of these is one of them, I don't know if you can see that, but there's little strings, and I didn't clear them off before putting my fusible stabilizer on, and so you can kind of see them if there's a glare. So try to make sure that the back of your fabrics are clear of any threads before you adhere your fusible stabilizer. So 3 of these, and this size for the applique piece, the headstone, we're going to want these to be 4.5 by 6.5. Cut these to 4.5 by 6.5. And again, I do put fusible stabilizer on the back of my applique pieces. So those are the only fabrics that we need for today's challenge. And this is with 3 blocks. So 3 main fabrics and 3 of the gray headstones. And then batting. You always need batting. Anytime you're quilting, you're going to add batting. So on this, what I do is I always look at the final cut size, and then I add a 1/2 inch. So the final cut size on this is 4.5 by 6.5. So that means that we want our batting to be 5 by 7. So easy, 3 pieces, 5 by 7 of the batting. And you're going to cut this down. We'll go over all of that part in photos. But the first, for the Kimberbell Designs quilting, The first step is a placement stitch that you do right on your stabilizer, and that is the placement stitch for the batting. Then you lay down your batting, and then it will do the number 2 is the tack down of the batting, and then we're going to trim. So it's all going to be exactly the right size. You don't have to worry about anything. And what that does is it takes away, you don't have batting in your seams. So that's why we love the Kimberbell quilting designs. They have it all incorporated into it so that we can just dummy proof, super easy. Just, oh yeah, I'm going to trim around this and then I have no batting in my seams. Easy to do. So that's 1 and 2. Number 3 is placement stitch for the main fabric. And number 4 is the basting stitch of the main fabric. So those are already incorporated into the quilting designs. So we'll also talk about, especially when we get to the larger blocks, sometimes they won't fit in your hoop. So even if you have, say you have an 8x12 hoop and the quilting design is 8x12, well, it's not going to fit. And the reason for that is because the placement stitch and the basting stitch of the main fabric are larger. So that one is a 1/2 inch larger, and then it doesn't fit in your 8x12 hoop. So we'll go over that and how to do that. But the easy solution is take out steps 3 and 4. You would just lay down your main fabric on top of your batting and tape it in place. Easy to do. But those are the 2 steps that make it a little bit larger of a quilting design, and they're a nice to have, but it's not necessary. So feel free to take those out if you need to. Personally, I wouldn't recommend making the quilting design smaller because you do want it to fill your main fabric, but that is an option as well. Sometimes you'll need that. So there are some machine that has the rounded hoops, and that makes it so that it cuts off the edges so that you actually have to make it a little bit smaller. I don't remember if that's Bernina or Janome, but I heard that some people had an issue with that. And so there's workarounds. Don't worry, we'll figure it all out together. And let's see, we went over the fabrics and the thread, or I'm sorry, not the thread, the batting. So one thing that the most important part of this is the quilting. So we're going to do the quilting in the hoop. And on this project, they have a guide. Kimberbell created a guide of this is what they used for their blocks. So for each block, they used this specific quilting design. They used this specific quilting color, thread color. So I'm going to try and follow it on this one. I've never done that before. I've always chosen my own quilting designs and my own quilting thread colors, but I'm going to let them do the work and make it easy, and I'm just going to follow along. I personally like to have the quilting stand out a little bit more, and they have it where like you're doing green thread on a green fabric, and so you don't see it as much, but it's a busy enough quilt that, you know, you don't have to have every little bit show. So I'm going to try it for this one. So it'll be a little harder on the tutorials for you to see, but I'm gonna give that a try. I will still give all the information as far as what quilting design I'm using, so you don't have to look it up on the Kimberbell site, but I am following the Kimberbell guide, and I'm also following the Kimberbell book. So let's talk about these specific blocks for today. So like I said, we're doing the first one. They're on page, where are we? Page 12 of the booklet, and it's the empty bobbins, alma scraps, and rest in pieces. And for those, since our final cut size is 4.5 by 6.5, that means that we want a quilting design that is 4 by 6. So they've chosen a different one for each of these blocks. They're located in different places in the quilt. You can always see on the back cover. Actually, on this one, it's bigger on the front cover. So on the front cover, you can see where all the blocks are, and that will help you to know what quilting design. But like I said, I'm going to just go ahead and go with the Kimberbell ones for this. So let's talk about that. So number 1, the first one is the black with spider webs, and they are using a chevron 1 in horizontal. And again, all of these are going to be in 4 by 6 quilting because our final cut size is 4.5 by 6.5. So chevron 1 in a horizontal, and they're using black thread for this. All right, and number 2 is this green fabric, and they are using Celebration 2. It's that banner, the cute, one of the cute banners. Celebration 2 in vertical. Celebration 2 in vertical in size 4x6. All right, and then number 3 is the purple fabric, and they are using Halloween 1. I think that's the spider webs, actually. I'm not sure. I don't remember off the top of my head. Anyway, Halloween 1, and again in 4x6. So that's what we need for today. They're using purple thread for their quilting. I don't have my thread kit yet, so I've chosen one that's somewhat similar. It'll get by until my thread kit arrives. And then green thread for the green fabrics. And the rest of this video we will do in photos. I always just take a whole ton of photos, load them up on the video, add a bunch of wording so that you know what you're looking at. And so one other thing is on the stabilizer, if you look through your booklet, they give you great recommendations on everything. And what they're recommending is hooping light mesh cutaway stabilizer. And that's nice because it's softer, and if you're going to actually use your quilt, I don't use my quilts, not these Kimberbell quilts anyway, they're too decorative, so I use them as a decorative purpose and mine hang on the wall. So for me, I don't need something super soft. I'm going to use tearaway, and there's a few reasons. One is it's quite a bit less expensive than the mesh cutaway, but I also have had such good luck. So, you know, you just don't change things that are working well. And I've had really good luck, and I've seen some pictures of people working on this quilt, and they're having a lot of puckering. And I just never have puckering as an issue. So I am going to keep with what's working for me. You do what works for you. So I am going to hoop tearaway stabilizer and use my batting, and always back every fabric with fusible stabilizer. So that works really well for me. That's what I'm going to do. So that's one thing I wanted to point out to you. Quilting designs we talked about, thread colors we talked about, and all the different sizes. So I think we're ready. Are you excited? This is going to be a really fun one. So hopefully we can get it done in time for Halloween, and we've already got Candy Cane Lane on our heels, excited to get that one started too. That one will be out soon, and we have a different sponsor for that one, so we'll talk about that after this project. So Oh My Darlings, make sure and check out Oh My Darlings if you realize that you don't have your backing kit or whatever you need for this quilt. They've got all the supplies ready for you, and they've done such a great job in jumping through all the hoops to make this happen quickly for us. So it was very last minute, and they had to order all their supplies and then reorder because they had so many of us going, hey, we want this and we want that. And so they've done a fantastic job, and I'm so thankful for Oma and all the team at Oh My Darling. So, all right, let's get started. Hey everyone, just a real quick tip. So on this gray fabric that we're using for the headstones, the back side with the fusible stabilizer looks very much like light gray. So be really careful when you put down your fabric face up that it is actually the gray, light gray, and not the light gray from the stabilizer. So ask me how I know. Get the right one.